And I will go ahead and share screen. And I will try to get through this fairly quickly. Let me show you the classroom first. The stuff that I've got up here under Unit 2. So this is the assignment I was talking about, Project 1 Skeleton and Navigation. Super easy instructions here. You guys already know what to do if you've been watching the recordings and following along in class with the demonstrations and so on, and you know what I'm talking about with this stuff. And even if there's anything that's unclear, I'll be going through the process, at least most of the process, over the next half hour or so. The in-class recordings for week 2. I didn't have a pre-class recording for today, but I did have the in-class recording from last night. I put it up here under Unit 5 hyperlinks. So the basic process for getting this first part of the project done, I'm not counting the proposals, which I will read about this evening. Remember that you want to have a directory. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the keyboard shortcut. So the root directory is just the folder into which all your stuff goes. So that would actually, expect to open up code and start doing some coding, but the very first thing you want to do is get yourself a folder. And I'm going to call mine Unit 6, but you guys probably want to call it Project 1, or maybe the supposed name of your website, your informational website, like All About Surfing or whatever, right? But mine's just called Unit 6 because I'm just doing the demonstration in here. Might not be a bad idea to go ahead, since we're already working with some CSS, and we're going to be adding some CSS to this next week, go ahead and make a CSS subfolder. Even if there's nothing in it yet, it doesn't hurt. Later on, like I was mentioning before, we'll also have either, in fact, next week, we'll also have either an images or a media or assets folder where all of the dependencies are being put, the media dependencies. We may have a fonts folder by the end of next week. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get to using @fontface. And then by the end of the semester, or the end of the quarter, we'll also have a JS subfolder, which will be keeping our JavaScripts in. Okay, but for now, all we've done is just have the CSS subfolder, so I'll start with that one. I'm going to pop on over to my coding environment here. Several of you have said you're using Notepad++, and that kind of tickles me. I spent years using Notepad++ and teaching classes like this in Notepad++ on old Windows machines. So, it's simple, it's straightforward, but it works, doesn't it? There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great little coding environment. So
I stopped using it.
You stopped using it?
Yeah, I started using the one Visual Studio Code. I think it's a little more user-friendly, to be honest.
Well, it is, and it's more advanced, right? It's got more capabilities, it does more. It also tries to control more, which irritates me sometimes, like, for instance, disabling things. Like I'm in a workspace that it decides is not trusted, then it's going to disable all the extensions that I want to use, like the preview and so on. But I'm figuring that stuff out. I think that it's stricter than it used to be. I think when I used Visual Studio before, when I was teaching PHP and stuff, I don't think it gave me the same kind of problems that it's doing right now. But anyway, that's okay. I still like it. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and start by doing a new HTML document. So select a language. Those of you who are using Notepad++, you also have a little language drop down that you can choose a language beforehand. If you forget to do that, no problem. Just save it with the .html extension, and then you'll get all the benefits. So I'm just going to go ahead and do HTML here. Now recall what I was saying before. Even if we are doing a 4-page website, or even if I were doing a 20-page website, or some unknown number of pages, maybe it's variable, maybe it's a web app, and the pages get generated on the fly by the user visits. I would want to start by building one view as completely as I could, at least as far as the stuff that I expect to be common between all of the pages. And that's what I'm having you guys do. So you'll be submitting 4 pages next week, but my strong recommendation is to not try to build them all at once. Try to build one as completely as you can. Okay, I got my little preview back. As completely as you can, and then just duplicate the file 3 times, and then change just a couple of little pieces of information, and you will have your 4-page website. So that includes getting the navigation in there. It includes running it through the validator tool. Includes taking it as far as you possibly can before doing the duplication. So I'm just going to build. This is stuff we've done before, right? I'm not introducing anything new tonight. you feel like you already have a great handle on this stuff, then you do not even need to watch, because I'm not doing anything new. I've got the doc type declaration and the document root here. Those are the two parts of an HTML file. And then I will get the two children of the root element or HTML element. It's going to be head and body. No surprises here. I've got the lang equals n on the HTML. The first thing that should be inside the head element is going to be your meta. UTF-8. And I showed a couple of other kinds of metas here, and I was going to require those, but I've backed off that for now. You can put them in there if you want. The viewport meta and like the description meta for search engine optimization. It's up to you whether you want to get that in there at this point. We've still got plenty of time left in the term to start getting some of that stuff in too. We'll still have 3 weeks of the class left after this. So there'll be time for that stuff later on. So it's up to you, but I'll just be really looking for that one. And the title here, start with the name of your website. Mine's Demo Unit 6. And then maybe even something about the content. Lately, what I've seen is the content of the page itself coming first in the title, and then the website coming after that, after a comma. That's what I've seen more often than anything else lately. We didn't used to do it that way. So I don't know, my demo is for doing an initial page here, so I'll just write that. You might, if you're doing your index page, you might think, put in initial page or like index page or home page probably. Welcome page, landing page, something like that, and then comma, and then the name of your website. And even though we're not doing any CSS yet, you can go ahead and put this link element in here as well. So link, rel equals style sheet, and then href equals, and I know we haven't built it yet, but we know it's going to be in the CSS subfolder. And as I was saying before, you can call it default, you can call it, I've seen index.css, just styles.cs, anything like that. Default is the one that I tend to use because it lets me know right away that this is what's going to contain the most important rules, and then those might be overridden by other style sheets somewhere else. I'm going to go ahead and save this as index.html. Remember that your home page needs to be named index in order for a web server to know when someone comes to your website and accesses your root directory, it knows what page to deliver for them, right? It's going to deliver the index file. It's going to be either index.html or index.php. And since we're not doing PHP yet, it's going to be index, and no capitals in this name. No capital I, not my index or surfing index or anything like that. Just this. Don't get creative with the file naming on this one. Okay, so those are the basic elements for this page, for the head rather. And then for the body, there are certain things that we can do. I have been long in the habit of putting a page div in here. It's up to you whether you want to actually do that or not. There are some coders out there, as I think I've mentioned, who say, well, if you want to be a purist about it, you shouldn't really even have this in there. It's a generic bucket, and you shouldn't need to use it. And I suppose they are correct in a way. It sure does help with the CSS sometimes. So I still put it in there. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it. Inside the page div, there is going to be a header. And the header is going to contain the big H1 on your page. And your page should really only have one H1 on it. For a while, in the early days of HTML, they backed off of that. And you can have more than one H1 per page. They were trying to do something different with it, which if we have time, I'll explain to you guys. If not, then save it for the front-end web development class. But these days, they've gone back towards the earlier recommendations. So if you have more than one H1 on your page, then and go to the validator tool. Validator will give you a warning about it. It won't be an error necessarily, but it'll complain about it a little bit. So this big H1 up at the top is going to be the name of your website. So if I were doing the surfing thing, I don't know why I chose surfing. I've never surfed a day in my life. But I could do like Surfing 101, and that is like this big H1, the site ID that's going to show up at the top of every page in your website. It's never going to change, right? That's just it. So I'm going to change mine, of course. The name of my website is the Demo Unit 6 is my website right here. And, there's some other things that you can do up here as well. If you think you might want a tagline, then you can put it here in the header as well. I don't know what, all about HTML. And there's some namings you can start thinking to be adding on these as well. So for instance, I've got the div ID equals page. If you know your CSS, you don't even need that ID because it's easy to select for that div that's directly inside the body. But, it can be handy too. I've gotten in the habit of doing like the header that has the H1 at the top of the page, giving that an ID of site ID. I used to give that to the H1 itself. I don't anymore. I give that to the header that has all this stuff in there. And then, to some extent, some of the stuff that happens after this is going to be up to you. I will put in a main element. Remember, the main is the stuff that changes from page to page. And I don't really have any of that content yet, and I don't expect you guys to have it yet. But one thing that I already know is going to go in there is the page name, right? The big H2 with the page name. So if the H1 is the site ID, H2 is the page name. So I can put another header inside of this and do an H2. And what is this page? This is my home page of my website, right? Or initial page, I suppose I should call it, since that's what I called it up here. But yours will probably just be home. Now, this is something that you might wind up taking out of the home page. There are a lot of home pages for websites on the web that do not tell you that you're on the home page. It's just understood, right? It should be visually apparent enough that you're on the landing page without having to be necessary to tell people, yeah, you're on the home page here. Nevertheless, I'd go ahead and put it in there for right now. Remember, we're going to be duplicating this page to create the other pages, and the other pages will definitely have an H2 on there. So you can always take this out of the index page later on. The header here, just like I did an ID equals site ID up here, I might do an ID equals page name here. So it's naming, in case I've got other headers on the page, and actually I do, and it'll help distinguish between them when I grab a hold of them using CSS. I could also grab hold of this one if I wanted to. I know I'm going to have paragraphs on the page, or on some page at least, so maybe I want to do PID equals tagline or something like that. Like so, or ID equals branding, or whatever, something like that. And let's see, you might also choose to do a footer, maybe with a paragraph containing some copyright information. I think I showed at some point how to do one of these HTML entities to do the and copy symbol, and I've been doing that in the demos, I believe. So 2022 minus 250, right, or whatever you've got down there. And then as far as the basic stuff on your page, this is pretty much it. Not counting the navigation yet. We still have to put the navigation in. But as far as a skeleton page goes, this is a pretty good skeleton page. Another habit that have been in for a long time, is to go ahead and any element that is open for a long time, I'll put a comment at the end of it just so I know what is happening there. Yeah, okay, and now the navigation. You've got some choices there too. Whether or not to put it in the header, whether to put it above or below the main element. We used to always put navigation down at the bottom of the page because that was considered to be good for SEO. It was considered that, and this is generally still true, the content up towards the top of the page is weighted more heavily by the bots than the content down at the bottom of the page. And so we would make sure to put the navigation down here and then use CSS if we wanted to and push it up to the top of the website for desktop views and so on. Word on the street now is that that doesn't matter anymore. Search algorithms are easily smart enough these days to know what a navigation element is and to skip it when indexing your content on your page. So you don't need to worry about it. So okay, do I put the nav in the header or outside of the header? You can kind of think of it visually, even though technically you're not really supposed to do that at this point. This is supposed to be just about content creation and structuring and so on. But you can start thinking about it. Do I want the navigation to be inside the main header bar up top there, the main flag area, or do I want it to be underneath that? And that can drive your change here, because whichever one you choose, making your choice here now can make your CSS easier to deal with later on. So the demo that I did last night, I think the nav element was inside the header, so maybe this time I'll put it outside the header, just to show that you can do either one. This is going to be a nav element, and like I said before, yesterday, it used to be that we would put the navigation links inside a UL, each one inside its own LI. And we have since learned, some of us at least who are paying attention, that accessibility recommendations recommend against doing that now, because it can actually get in the way of visually impaired accessing the content on your page. So I don't teach it that way anymore, even though I used to. I recommend just putting the links in here, and that's it. So a link is going to be ahref. Remember, that's the hyperreference. And then the hypertext here is the text that the user actually sees and can roll over and click on, and hopefully will actually do something, like take them to a different page or something like that. So I can take this and duplicate it 3 times, so I've got 4 of them. And I'll do a slightly different structure this time. Let's say the About page is actually my learning page. And then I've got a gallery page here. And then I've got my contact page here. Just be aware as you build these and as you think about them, one page will be a gallery-like thing. I'm not going to be real strict in that it has to be a gallery of images, but it's going to be a page that has some like several media elements on it, whether they're images or audio files or video files or what have you. So you might call them gallery, or I don't know, something else conceivably. Now, as far as getting the reference values in there, it takes a little bit of planning. I mean, this one we know already. We know the home page is going to be index.html. That's the file that we're working on right now, right? So we know that's what this one has to be. And generally speaking, whatever these pages are named, that's probably what the name of the file should be as well, except without the capital and with the .html extension. So if I've got a page called learning, then I probably am going to want to create a learning.html. And if I've got a gallery page, then guess what? No surprises, right? Gallery.html and then contact.html. So like so. So this would be an acceptable basic navigation element. I also definitely recommend, and I would look for this to some extent, you guys to put a title on there, even if it just duplicates the text here. I think it's a good thing to have on there. So you probably actually, I'm not being very efficient here. You could have put the title attribute in there before duplicating all of these, and then maybe just copy and paste your text in there. And the title doesn't need to be an exact duplicate of the hypertext here. That's just kind of a place to start. It's like kind of the default, right? Put that much in there. And then if you decided that the user could use a little bit more information here, or maybe the search bots could use a little bit more information in here, maybe this would be like, I don't know, our cool surfing gallery or something like that. So it doesn't have to say exactly the same thing here. It's just a place to start from. So I think that will get me done with one page here. Let me just do a quick, I'm going to do two things with it. When I think I'm done, I'm going to do a visual sweep of it and make sure that I'm not missing anything. Make sure everything is indented carefully and consistently so that elements that share a common parent are all indented at the same level. So like header, nav, main, and footer are all indented at the same level. They're all inside the div, which is all inside the body, which is inside HTML, and so on. Everything's cleanly indented. That's something I'll be looking for when I look over your code. And then just, yeah, take a quick look here. And then I'm going to go ahead, before I duplicate it, I'm going to go to the validator tool. And I've told you this before, I'll tell you again, every single page of markup that you guys submit to me, I'm going to, pretty much before I do anything, I might crack it open and take a glance at it like this, but then immediately I'm going to run it through the validator tool online. So you guys want to do that with all of your pages before submitting them to me. And in a broader arena, before publishing any markup to anybody where they can see it. Trust me on this. Just Just validate your stuff. I was lucky enough to get a 4th place prize on an HTML and CSS contest on SitePoint back in the day. And to this day, this was years ago, I'm convinced that I could have gotten 3rd or maybe 2nd place even if I just validated the stupid page before submitting it. I'm convinced that I got knocked down a peg or two because of that. And I really, at that time, I knew better. I think I was just really, really busy and I just skipped that step. And really, it only takes a moment, right? It takes like a minute to upload your file and check it out. You can either...
Opening up old wounds, huh?
What's that?
Opening up old wounds there.
Yeah, right? Do I sound bitter? Okay, so yeah, you can either copy and paste this if you want to, or you can do the file upload thing. Totally up to you. I'm going to go ahead and do the file upload. And wrong class, that's the database class. Here we go. And here's my index file. I'm going to open it. As you know, I like to check these first 2 checkboxes. I like to see the outline there, even though there's not much content there to outline. Later on, once we get more content in there, this will become more useful. But anyway, I'll go ahead and check it. And this is what we're looking for, the green bar. We want no errors or warnings to show. I think I've said this before, errors you should be able to fix. Sometimes if there's a lot of errors, try fixing the first 1 or 2 errors, and sometimes that'll clear the rest of them out because a lot of them might be based on like there was an unclosed element somewhere or something like that. And then if it gives you warnings that you don't understand, talk to me about it. Like show me on Tuesday, or ask for an office hour before then, and we'll take a look at it together. But this guy here, it should just be the same thing as your source code. And then here is the outlines down here. Nav element with no heading, that's not a problem. A nav element is a sectioning element, so it's looking for a heading there, but it's not giving me a warning about it or anything. So if you see something like this that's not in red or anything like that, it's fine. No problem. And yeah, there we go. So this page is looking good to me. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate it 3 times. And so I can either do a save as in here, or I can go right to my folder and just go ahead and copy this a few times and rename them. So this one is my about. That's what I had, right? No, I didn't. I've got a learning. Okay, see, I've got to make sure that they match there. If I've got about.html here and I've got this pointing to learning.html, then that link will break. So let me go ahead and rename that and get it right this time. It's going to be learning. And then this one is, I believe, gallery. See, all of these are lowercase, right? I'm not capitalizing anything. I'm not doing any creative naming conventions or anything like that. Just keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. There's, probably no more fundamental piece of advice that you can get for web development. Just keep it as simple as you possibly can, because it gets complicated real fast without anybody putting any effort in that direction. We'll definitely have a contact. Okay. So these guys here are, let's see, I'll do these in order. So I'll open up learning in my coding environment. So there's Visual Studio. And there's some things that I need to change about it, right? Because it's no longer the index page. And my title, probably want to change that. And I want to leave the H1 alone, right? That's the one that should stay the same on all pages. This should stay the same. Everything should stay the same except move your page name down here and your title. So I guess that's really all you have to change here. All right, there we go. Save that. I'll leave them all open for right now. Next one is gallery. Okay, so I'll change the title. Gallery. I'll go ahead and, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek here. I'm going to go ahead and just call this home page. That makes more sense. Okay, gallery, and then change it down here as well. Gallery. And the last one is contact. Open my coding environment. and the H2 contact. Okay, save all 4 of them. Now, even after you've validated everything and you've taken a look and all this is making sense to you and everything, there's one more step that you really want to do before submitting or sharing a website or any multi-page document of this sort. And that is to open it up in an actual browser, not in the preview pane. I really like that preview pane, but not there. Open it up in an actual browser and click through all the links. And by that, I mean click on every link from every page. So like right now I'm on the index page. I'm going to click on, make sure that goes to the right place. And there we go. And then hit the back button. Try this one. Try this one. And then if you really want to be sure about it, do that from every page. So go to the learning page and make sure you go home from there. And then back. And then make sure you can go to gallery, back, and make sure you can go to contact and so on. For small sites like this, I got in the habit of doing this a long time ago. Just check, because the last thing that you want in the whole wide world is broken links somewhere. That will kill your rankings and it'll kill your user base. It'll kill everything. It'll all be over after that. You're done in this industry. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, just go through a browser and make sure all the links are working the way you expect them to. Make sure they're not opening up in a new window or anything like that. And then that would be the last thing to do if everything validates. I suppose if you really wanted to be sure about validation, even though this is a strict duplication, it's not quite strict, right? Because we did change a few things here. So you could, if you want to be absolutely certain, check every page in the validator tool. Next one is learning. Check it, green bar. Let's pick the next one is gallery. Check it, green bar. One more time, contact. Check it, green bar, and we're good. There's no way Bispo can dock me any points on this one. I've checked everything 50 times. Everything's fine. So that's what you want to do for Tuesday, except, of course, your own website topic. And don't make it exactly the same as my structure. I mean, it should be something like that, I think, but it doesn't have to be exactly that. As long as you've got all the basic elements there, like maybe your navigation does go at the bottom, maybe it's inside the header, maybe it's above the header. I've seen that occasionally. Just whatever you have in mind for your own little website environment, that's what you want to go for. So you don't need to stick slavishly to what I've got here. Do your own, but follow the same basic procedure that I just did. Okay, any questions? Everybody good with that? Okay, cool. You have until the end of class to get in the proposal if you want to.
As far as content,
yeah.
it's just something like a educational tutorial.
Yeah, anything informational. So yeah, it can be educational, it can be a tutorial, it can be just something that provides information about some activity. That's the basic thing. So okay. I put that up in the instructions on the classroom stream for last night about what kind of project it'll be. But you don't have to worry about any of the content for right yet. I mean, yeah, find some content. I said for the assignment for the proposal for tonight, find some possible sources of content online and include links to those in your proposal. But as far as building your markup, you don't actually have to put any of that content in here yet, other than just the page name to let us know what each page is going to be about. That's it. But yeah, like this is like this is the total of what you would have to turn in for next week. You don't have to build any CSS yet. You don't have to put any page main content in there yet. Nothing like that. Okay, good. Other questions? Okay, cool. So I was saying, you can have until the end of class to get the proposal done. Maybe you've got a better idea about it now and you want to do some revisions before submitting it. I'll be looking over all the assignments tonight and through the weekend and hopefully get caught up by Monday. That's my evil plan. So I'll stop presenting. That will stop recording.